In a gripping confrontation of justice versus deception, Judy Sheindlin exposes a father's web of lies about child support. While his 3 young children go without basic necessities, Joe flaunts his wealth on social media and claims poverty in court. Ella Matthews works 2 jobs to feed her kids, watching helplessly as her ex-husband dodges $45,000 in support payments. Now, Sheindlin uncovers evidence that will force this deadbeat dad to face the truth. Ella Matthews never imagined she'd end up here. 3 years ago, she had a stable family life with her 3 children, Emma, 8, Lucas, 6, and Sophie, 4. The family lived comfortably on Joe's income as a successful business consultant while Ella worked part-time as a teacher's assistant. Their split started with Joe's increasing absences, missed family dinners, and mysterious business trips that stretched longer each time. The divorce blindsided Ella. Joe cleared their joint accounts days before serving her papers, leaving her scrambling to provide for their children. He promised to support them, claiming his business was struggling. Ella believed him at first, accepting reduced support payments while Joe supposedly got back on his feet. Reality hit hard when Ella spotted Joe's social media posts. While she picked up extra shifts at a local diner to afford school supplies, he shared photos from a luxury resort in Bali. When Emma needed braces, Ella pawned her wedding ring, only to see Joe flaunting a new sports car on Instagram. Lucas wore his cousin's hand-me-down clothes while their father posted about shopping sprees in Milan. Ella documented everything. Every missed payment, every extravagant purchase, every excuse Joe made about being broke. The support checks dwindled from irregular to non-existent. She watched helplessly as the arrears grew, $10,000, then $25,000, finally reaching $45,000. Meanwhile, Sophie couldn't join dance classes because Ella barely covered rent and groceries with her 2 jobs. The breaking point came during Emma's birthday. Ella saved for months to buy her daughter a modest cake and a few small gifts. That same day, Joe posted photos of his new beachfront condo. Emma cried, asking why Daddy could buy a new house but couldn't help buy her asthma medicine. Ella held her daughter, fighting back tears, knowing something had to change. Through a friend's recommendation, Ella reached out to Judy Sheindlin's team. They found Joe's pattern suspicious. His claims of poverty didn't match his lifestyle. His tax returns showed minimal income, but his credit card statements told a different story. Designer clothes, first-class flights, and high-end restaurants painted a picture of hidden wealth. Ella's evidence filled 3 thick folders. Bank statements showing large cash withdrawals before support payment dates. Business records linking Joe to shell companies. Social media posts contradicting his courthouse claims of destitution. Most damning were the videos of Joe bragging about keeping his money safe from gold diggers at a bachelor party, not knowing his friend's wife would send the footage to Ella. Now, Ella sits in the courthouse, her children at their grandmother's house, praying for justice. Her hands shake as she clutches the folders containing proof of Joe's deception. 3 years of struggling, scrimping, and watching her children go without basic necessities while their father lived lavishly. Today, Judy Sheindlin would hear their story, and Ella prayed the truth would finally come to light. Judy Sheindlin's investigative team started their work with Ella's meticulously organized evidence. Financial investigator Maria Rodriguez took the lead, noticing patterns that raised immediate red flags. Joe's declared income of $32,000 annually couldn't explain his frequent international travels or his recent purchase of a $780,000 beachfront condo. The team's first breakthrough came through Joe's business registrations. While he claimed to operate a single struggling consulting firm, state records revealed a network of 5 LLCs, all registered to different virtual office addresses. Each company channeled money through a complex web of accounts, making it difficult to trace the true flow of funds. Rodriguez discovered Joe had created a sophisticated cash-only side business. He consulted for small restaurants, accepting payment in cash to avoid paper trails. These transactions, when tallied, added up to nearly $60,000 annually, all completely undeclared. The evidence emerged through cross-referencing client testimonials on his business website with bank deposits that didn't match his reported income. Social media provided another goldmine of information. Joe's Instagram showed him driving a new Tesla Model S, tagged with the caption "Hard work pays off #blessed." The purchase date matched a suspicious $98,000 withdrawal from one of his shell companies. His LinkedIn profile boasted about expanding his consulting practice internationally, contradicting his courthouse claims of business failure. The offshore accounts proved trickier to trace. A tip from Joe's former business partner led investigators to accounts in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. These accounts received regular transfers from his various LLCs, disguised as consulting fees to foreign contractors. The total hidden in these accounts exceeded $250,000, more than enough to cover his child support obligations 5 times over. Credit card statements revealed Joe's true lifestyle. While claiming poverty, he spent $12,000 at high-end restaurants in a single month. His American Express Black Card showed regular charges at luxury hotels, designer boutiques, and exclusive nightclubs. The same month he told Ella he couldn't afford their son's school supplies. He spent $15,000 on a shopping spree in Dubai. The investigation uncovered Joe's property holdings through an anonymous corporation. Besides his beachfront condo, he owned 2 rental properties generating $4,000 monthly in passive income. He had listed his sister as the property manager, paying her a nominal fee to maintain the appearance of separation from these assets. A breakthrough came when Rodriguez found Joe's divorce attorney's billing records through a subpoena. The records showed Joe specifically seeking advice on hiding assets before filing for divorce. Email exchanges revealed detailed discussions about moving money offshore and structuring businesses to appear less profitable than they were. The team compiled evidence of Joe's actual income streams. Primary consulting business, $120,000 annually. Cash-only restaurant consulting, $60,000. Rental property income, $48,000. International consulting fees, $85,000. Total annual income, $313,000. This figure starkly contrasted with the $32,000 he reported to the court. The investigation also revealed Joe had liquidated $180,000 in investments shortly before filing for divorce, moving the funds through multiple accounts to obscure their destination. The most damning evidence came from Joe's own electronic trail. His cloud storage contained spreadsheets tracking his true income and assets, meticulously categorized but hidden from official records. These documents showed he had been planning his financial deception for over a year before leaving Ella, carefully constructing a facade of poverty while building his hidden wealth. As the investigation concluded, Rodriguez prepared a comprehensive report for Judy Sheindlin. The evidence painted a clear picture of systematic financial deception spanning years. Joe hadn't simply fallen behind on payments. He had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to maintain his luxurious lifestyle while depriving his children of basic necessities. The report included surveillance photos of Joe at high-end restaurants, documentation of his property holdings, and clear proof of his hidden income streams. Ella reviewed the findings with tears in her eyes. Each page revealed another layer of betrayal, another carefully constructed lie. The man who claimed he could barely afford food was living a life of luxury while their children wore secondhand clothes. Now, armed with irrefutable evidence, she prepared to face him in Judy Sheindlin's courtroom, knowing the truth would finally come to light. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Joe strode in wearing an expensive Italian suit, his confidence evident in every step. Ella sat quietly at her table, the 3 folders of evidence stacked neatly before her. Judy Sheindlin studied Joe's demeanor as he took his seat, noting his designer watch and perfectly tailored appearance. The proceedings began with Joe presenting his standard defense. He spoke of business failures, market downturns, and his desperate attempts to maintain some form of income. His voice carried practiced sincerity as he described struggling to make ends meet. According to his testimony, he lived in a modest apartment, drove a used car, and could barely afford his own expenses, let alone child support. Judy Sheindlin listened without expression, allowing Joe to build his narrative of hardship. He presented his tax returns showing minimal income, explaining how his consulting business had lost most of its clients. He spoke of borrowing money from friends just to stay afloat. When he mentioned selling personal items to pay bills, Ella's hands tightened into fists beneath the table. The shift in atmosphere came when Sheindlin held up a recent photo of Joe at his beachfront condo. His confident expression faltered slightly. She asked about the property's purchase price, $780,000. Joe claimed it belonged to a business associate. He was just house-sitting. Sheindlin then produced the property records showing his ownership through an anonymous corporation. Joe attempted to explain, but Sheindlin was just getting started. She displayed his credit card statements on the courtroom screen. The expenses scrolled past: $12,000 in restaurant charges, $15,000 shopping in Dubai, first-class flights to Singapore. Each entry contradicted his claims of poverty. Joe's explanations grew increasingly tangled as he tried to maintain his story of financial hardship. The evidence mounted methodically. Sheindlin revealed the network of shell companies, each LLC registration highlighting another piece of his deception. Joe claimed ignorance, suggesting his accountant had structured his businesses without his knowledge. This defense crumbled when Sheindlin produced emails between Joe and his divorce attorney, explicitly discussing strategies to hide assets. Ella watched as her ex-husband's carefully constructed facade began to crack. His confident posture gave way to nervous fidgeting as Sheindlin outlined his true income streams. The rental properties he'd hidden under his sister's name. The cash-only restaurant consulting business. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. The courtroom fell silent as Sheindlin played the video from the bachelor party. Joe's own voice filled the room, bragging about keeping his money safe from gold diggers, while his children went without. His face reddened as he watched himself explain his techniques for hiding income. Ella closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face as she heard him laugh about fooling the court system. When asked about his children's needs, Joe attempted to shift blame to Ella's financial management. This proved to be a crucial mistake. Sheindlin produced documentation of Ella's 2 jobs, her careful budgeting, and the sacrifices she'd made. Medical bills showed Emma's untreated asthma while Joe posted about his new Tesla. School records revealed Lucas's worn-out clothes while his father spent thousands on designer suits. The facade finally shattered when Sheindlin presented Joe's hidden spreadsheets. The detailed tracking of his actual income, $313,000 annually, appeared in his own meticulous documentation. His careful categorization of assets and income streams, all concealed from the court, revealed the true extent of his deception. Joe's attempts at explanation grew increasingly desperate as each new piece of evidence confirmed his deliberate fraud. Sheindlin's questioning grew more intense. She asked about specific transfers of money, dates of luxury purchases, and his children's unmet needs. Each question cornered Joe further, his responses becoming shorter and less coherent. When confronted about emptying the family's accounts before filing for divorce, he had no answer. The breaking point came when Sheindlin read from Emma's school counselor's report. It detailed the 8-year-old's distress at seeing her father's social media posts about expensive vacations while she couldn't afford to join her friends for school activities. Joe's carefully maintained composure crumbled completely. For the first time, he faced the real impact of his choices on his children. Ella finally spoke, her voice steady despite her tears. She described working double shifts to afford their children's basic needs. She talked about Sophie's disappointment at missing dance classes, Lucas wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, and Emma's untreated asthma. All while their father lived in luxury. The contrast between Joe's claimed poverty and his documented lifestyle became impossible to ignore. Judy Sheindlin's voice cut through the tension. She systematically dismantled every excuse, every deception, every attempt at evasion. The evidence painted an undeniable picture of a father who had orchestrated an elaborate financial scheme to maintain his luxurious lifestyle at the expense of his children's well-being. Joe sat in silence, his earlier confidence replaced by the realization that his years of deception had finally caught up with him. As the confrontation reached its climax, Joe's carefully constructed world of lies lay in ruins around him. His true financial status exposed, his deliberate deception documented, and the impact on his children made painfully clear. The courtroom watched as a father who had spent years evading his responsibilities finally faced the consequences of his choices. The weight of evidence pressed down on Joe as he sat in the silent courtroom. His expensive suit no longer projected success. Instead, it stood as another symbol of his betrayal. After several moments of tense silence, his carefully constructed defenses crumbled entirely. Joe's admission started quietly, almost imperceptibly. He acknowledged that yes, he owned the beachfront condo outright. The shell company was his creation, designed specifically to hide assets during the divorce. His voice trembled as he confirmed his actual annual income, $313,000. The number hung in the air, a stark contrast to the $32,000 he'd claimed in court documents. The truth spilled out in waves. Joe detailed how he'd planned the financial deception months before leaving Ella. He'd consulted with financial advisors about moving money offshore, creating a network of businesses to obscure his true income. Each admission revealed another layer of calculated betrayal. He'd withdrawn cash systematically, always keeping the amounts below reporting thresholds. The rental properties under his sister's name generated steady income he'd hidden from the court. Ella listened as Joe described his bachelor party boasts about outsmarting the system. His voice cracked when he admitted watching their children's social media posts, seeing them wear secondhand clothes while he spent thousands on himself. The magnitude of his selfishness became clear as he listed luxury purchases. The Tesla, first-class flights, designer wardrobes, all while Emma couldn't afford her asthma medication. The emotional dam broke when Joe described seeing Lucas at the mall last month, wearing visibly worn-out shoes. He ducked into a store to avoid his son, later spending $500 on dinner at an upscale restaurant. Tears fell as he recounted Sophie asking him during a rare visit why he had a new car when they couldn't afford her dance classes. His true financial status emerged in detail. Beyond his annual income, Joe had accumulated significant assets. The beachfront condo valued at $780,000. 2 rental properties worth $450,000 each. Offshore accounts containing over $250,000. Investment portfolios valued at $180,000. Multiple luxury vehicles and high-end possessions. The total painted a picture of wealth deliberately hidden while his children struggled. Joe admitted to spending over $100,000 on personal luxuries in the past year alone, more than twice the amount he owed in back child support. His voice shook as he described checking his offshore account balance the same day Ella pawned her wedding ring to pay for Emma's medical bills. Judy Sheindlin's questioning turned to Joe's motivation. His response revealed a mindset focused entirely on personal gratification. He'd convinced himself that Ella would waste any support money, using this rationalization to justify his lavish spending. The fallacy of this excuse became clear as financial records showed Ella's careful budgeting of her modest income to provide for their children's basic needs. The impact of Joe's choices on his children emerged in heartbreaking detail. School records showed Emma's declining academic performance as she struggled with untreated asthma. Lucas had withdrawn from sports because they couldn't afford equipment. Sophie had stopped talking about her dream of becoming a dancer. Each revelation highlighted the real cost of Joe's deception, not in dollars, but in stolen opportunities and childhood memories. Ella's careful documentation proved crucial. Every denied request for support, every bounced check, every ignored message about the children's needs had been preserved. The evidence showed Joe had read messages about Emma's medical emergency without responding, posting about his Dubai vacation that same week. His claims of poverty contrasted sharply with social media posts flaunting wealth and luxury. Joe's final admission centered on his relationship with his children. He acknowledged checking their social media regularly, knowing about their struggles but choosing to maintain his deception. The psychological impact of his actions became clear. His children had watched their father live in luxury while they went without necessities. The damage to their trust and emotional well-being couldn't be measured in monetary terms. The truth laid bare showed not just financial fraud but a fundamental betrayal of parental responsibility. Joe had prioritized his luxury lifestyle over his children's basic needs, maintaining an elaborate deception while watching them struggle. His admission revealed a pattern of choices focused solely on personal gain, disregarding the emotional and physical well-being of his own children. As Joe's confession concluded, the courtroom remained silent. The full scope of his deception, documented in financial records and admitted in his own words, painted a picture of calculated betrayal spanning years. Ella wiped away tears, finally vindicated after years of struggling to prove what she'd known all along. The truth had emerged, bringing with it the possibility of justice for 3 children who had suffered the consequences of their father's choices. Judy Sheindlin's voice filled the courtroom with authority as she delivered her verdict. The evidence had revealed not just financial negligence but a calculated scheme to deprive 3 children of their basic needs while their father lived in luxury. The consequences would be appropriately severe. First came the immediate financial judgment. Joe would pay the full $45,000 in back child support within 24 hours. Sheindlin arranged for an immediate asset freeze on his accounts, ensuring the money would be transferred before he could move or hide additional funds. His beachfront condo would serve as collateral until the payment cleared. The monthly support structure underwent complete revision. Based on Joe's actual income of $313,000 annually, his monthly child support obligation increased to $5,200. This amount reflected not only basic needs but also the children's medical expenses, educational requirements, and extracurricular activities. Sophie would finally attend dance classes. Lucas would get new clothes and sports equipment. Emma's asthma medication would never go unfilled again. Sheindlin implemented strict monitoring measures. Joe's business accounts would undergo quarterly audits. His personal expenses would be tracked through mandatory financial reporting. Any large purchases or suspicious transactions would trigger automatic review. The offshore accounts would be monitored, with severe penalties for any attempts to hide or divert funds. The wage garnishment system ensured compliance. Support payments would be automatically deducted from Joe's multiple income streams. His rental property income would go directly into a supervised account, with support payments taking priority over his personal expenses. The Tesla and designer wardrobe might have to go, but his children would no longer wear hand-me-downs. Legal consequences followed the financial ones. Sheindlin referred Joe's case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to financial fraud. His deliberate deception of the court, documented in emails and financial records, constituted perjury. The evidence suggested tax evasion as well, triggering an IRS investigation into his hidden income. Ella received additional considerations. Joe would pay her legal fees and compensate her for the pawned wedding ring. The children's medical expenses would be reimbursed retroactively. A college fund would be established, with mandatory monthly contributions from Joe's income. The years of financial hardship had taken their toll, but now Ella could focus on rebuilding their lives. The parenting schedule underwent revision. Joe's visitation rights now carried financial obligations. Each visit would require proof of current support payments. His attendance at school events and activities would be permitted only if he maintained compliance with all court orders. The children's emotional well-being took priority over his convenience. Sheindlin addressed Joe directly about his parental responsibilities. The luxury lifestyle would end, replaced by proper financial support for his children. His priorities would shift from personal indulgence to parental obligation. The designer suits and international vacations had come at his children's expense, a situation that would never repeat. The impact on Joe's businesses reflected his choices. The court order included provisions for business transparency. His consulting firms would operate under financial oversight. The cash-only side business would cease, replaced by properly documented transactions. His sister's role in hiding rental property income resulted in additional legal scrutiny. Professional consequences mounted. Joe's reputation in the business community suffered as news of his financial deception spread. Clients questioned his integrity. The carefully crafted image of success crumbled, revealing the true cost of his choices. His focus would shift from maintaining appearances to rebuilding trust, starting with his children. Ella's vindication came with practical support. The court order included provisions for financial counseling and support services. A trust would be established for the children's future needs. The years of struggling alone ended, replaced by enforced responsibility from their father. The system that had failed her family now worked to protect their interests. The resolution provided more than financial remedy. Joe's admission and the court's response sent a message about parental responsibility. The children would see justice served, understanding that their father's neglect carried consequences. The psychological damage would take time to heal, but the court's action marked a starting point for recovery. Implementation began immediately. Joe surrendered his passport until the back support payment cleared. His assets came under court supervision. The wage garnishment system activated, ensuring consistent support payments. The mechanisms of justice moved swiftly, transforming years of deception into concrete consequences. The resolution represented more than monetary judgment. It established accountability, created transparency, and prioritized children's needs over parental convenience. Joe's lifestyle of luxury funded by hidden income ended, replaced by structured financial responsibility. The father who boasted about outsmarting the system now answered to it, his choices carrying lasting consequences for both his finances and his relationships. 3 months after Judy Sheindlin's verdict, the Matthews family home buzzed with new energy. Ella watched from the kitchen as Sophie practiced her dance routine in the living room, her new leotard a source of endless pride. The refrigerator door displayed Lucas's recent math test with a proud A marked in red, his after-school tutoring already showing results. Emma's asthma attacks had decreased significantly with proper medication, her breathing finally under control. The changes extended beyond the physical. Ella had quit her second job at the diner, using the extra time to attend Emma's school events and Lucas's soccer games. The regular support payments arrived like clockwork through the garnishment system, allowing her to budget confidently for the first time in years. The children's college fund grew steadily, providing security for their future education. Joe's compliance with the court orders brought unexpected healing. He sold the beachfront condo and Tesla, using the money to fulfill his parental obligations. His supervised visits showed a father slowly learning to prioritize his children's needs. When Sophie performed in her first dance recital, Joe sat quietly in the audience, watching his daughter shine in properly fitted dance shoes. The case's impact reached beyond one family. Local courts adopted stricter monitoring of support payment claims, implementing similar financial oversight measures. Parents facing similar situations found hope in Ella's story, while those considering deception faced stark warnings about consequences. Judy Sheindlin's handling of the case became a reference point for family courts dealing with hidden income cases. Ella recently found Emma's old inhaler while cleaning, remembering the panic of rationing her daughter's medicine. Now, the medicine cabinet stayed stocked, the children wore clothes that fit, and their home rang with the sounds of normal childhood. The security of consistent support allowed healing to begin, transforming 3 children's lives from survival to growth. The story of the Matthews family demonstrated that justice, though sometimes delayed, could prevail through persistence and proper oversight. For Ella and her children, the future finally held promise instead of fear, their lives forever changed by the day truth and accountability triumphed over deception.